Picture this. You're a loader in a Sherman Tank, 1944. You've been sealed inside this steel box for 8 hours straight. Outside, German mortar are turning the world to mud and fire. You can't open the hatch. Shrapnel would slice you in half. But you've got a bigger problem, a biological one. You ate the ration stew for breakfast, cold and greasy. Now your stomach is twisting into knots. You're sweating, trapped in a space the size of a closet with 4 other guys. The air is already thick with diesel fumes, core-dyed smoke, and unwashed bodies. And you have to go. Right now. What do? War movies show us the glory. They show the explosions, the speeches, the heroism. But they never show the one thing every single soldier dealt with every single day. Biology. Today on Verified World War II Stories, we are breaking the ultimate taboo. We re-answering the question your history teacher was too embarrassed to ask. How did soldiers go to the bathroom in the middle of a battle? From the frozen latrines of Stalingrad where men died with their pants down, to the dysentery-filled deserts of North Africa, this is the smelly, uncomfortable and verified truth about hygiene in hell. Let's start with the question I promised to answer. The tank. Being a tanker in World War II was glamorous only in the newsreels. In reality, a tank is a prison. During an active battle, a crew could be locked inside their vehicle for 12, 24, or even 48 hours straight. There's no bathroom in a Tiger tank. There's no toilets in a T-34. So the crews had to improvise. If it was just number one, the solution was relatively easy. Every tank is filled with empty shell casings. When you fire the main gun, a large brass cylinder falls onto the floor. That hot brass casing became the urinal. You'd grab an empty 75mm shell, do your business, and then this is the important part, you had to toss it out the pistol port, a small hole in the side of the turret. Immediately. If you spilled it, your crewmates would probably beat you up. The smell inside a tank was bad enough already. But what about number 2? This was the nightmare scenario. If the tank was on the move, you held it. Period. You held it until you were in physical pain. But if you were stuck in a stationary position, surrounded by the enemy, holding it wasn't an option. American crews in the Sherman Tank discovered a design flaw that became a lifesaver. The Sherman had a floor escape hatch behind the assistant driver's seat. It was meant for the crew to crawl out if the tank caught fire. Instead, crews would unbolt the floor hatch, slide it open just a few inches, and use the hole in the floor as a makeshift toilet. The waste would fall directly onto the mud under the tank. It was dangerous, it was freezing cold, but it was better than the alternative. German crews in the Tiger tank didn't have a convenient floor hatch. They often used empty ammunition boxes or empty food tins. Imagine the humiliation. You're an elite soldier of the Panzer Division, commanding a 60-ton war machine, and you're squatting over a tin can while your gunner tries to look the other way. But the tank was luxury compared to the reality for the infantry. Let's move to the Eastern Front, Russia, winter of 1942. The temperature is minus 30 degrees Celsius. In these conditions, going to the bathroom wasn't just uncomfortable. It was lethal. German doctors reported hundreds of cases of severe frostbite on the buttocks and thighs. It sounds funny today, but it wasn't then. If you exposed bare skin to that kind of wind chill, the flesh would freeze in seconds. The skin would turn black and die. Soldiers were hospitalized simply because they needed to relieve themselves. To combat this, the Wehrmacht built enclosed latrines with heaters, but on the front line, that was impossible. So, soldiers developed a buddy system. One man would do his business as fast as humanly possible, while 2 other men stood around him, holding up blankets to block the wind. But the cold wasn't the only enemy. The sniper was worse. Russian snipers knew that a human being is most vulnerable when they are squatting. They specifically watched the areas behind the German trenches. They looked for the steam rising. There are verified diaries from German soldiers describing the terror of Latrine Commandos. They would run out, dig a hole in the frozen ground, and pray they didn't catch a bullet. Many men developed severe constipation simply because they were too terrified to go. They would hold it for days, leading to serious internal health problems. Now let's travel from the freezing cold to the burning heat, North Africa. The British versus Rommel. Here, the enemy was dysentery. It's a disease caused by drinking dirty water or eating food contaminated by flies. It causes violent, uncontrollable diarrhea. In the desert, there's no water to wash your hands. There are millions of flies. They land on the dead bodies, then they land on your food. In 1942, during the Battle of El Alamein, it's estimated that up to half the soldiers on both sides were suffering from dysentery. This changed how the war was fought. Inside a British Crusader tank, the heat could reach 120 degrees Fahrenheit. If a crew member had dysentery, the inside of that tank became a biological hazard zone. It destroyed morale. Men were fighting while dehydrated, weak, and covered in their own filth. There's a famous account of a British unit under heavy mortar fire. One soldier, suffering from dysentery, simply couldn't stay in his foxhole. He had to jump out every 10 minutes. Eventually, he just stopped wearing his pants. He fought the battle in his shirt and helmet, firing his rifle, because the biological urge was stronger than the fear of death. But the worst job in the entire war might have belonged to the Latrine Orderly. In the trenches of both world wars, waste management was critical. If you didn't manage it, cholera and typhus would kill more men than bullets. Armies dug deep trenches called straddle trenches. You straddled them, did your business, and threw dirt on top. But these filled up fast. In the American army, if you stayed in one place too long, like in the hedgerows of Normandy, the smell became a beacon for the enemy. You could literally smell an American position downwind before you saw it. To solve this, they used honey buckets, large metal cans. Every morning, a low-ranking soldier or a prisoner of war had to carry these heavy, sloshing buckets out of the trench to a disposal pit. And how did they dispose of it? They burned it. They would pour diesel fuel into cut-in-half metal drums filled with waste and set them on fire. It was the job of the lowest-ranking soldier to stir the mixture with a stick to ensure it burned completely. The smell of burning diesel mixed with excrement is a smell that veterans say they never, ever forgot. Let's talk about one small piece of technology that the Americans had, which the Germans envied: toilet paper. The American Kai ration contained a small packet of toilet paper. It was rough, but it was there. The British also issued paper. The Germans? By 1944, their supply lines had collapsed. German toilet paper was non-existent. Soldiers used leaves, snow, or more often, the propaganda leaflets dropped by Allied planes. There is a dark irony here. The Allies would drop millions of flyers over Germany, saying, "Surrender. You are losing." The German commanders forbade the soldiers from reading them, but the soldiers collected them eagerly. Not to read, but to use. One German soldier wrote home, "The Americans are very kind. They send us paper from the sky so we can wipe our asses. So, why does this matter? Why talk about toilets?" Because it humanizes the history. When we look at black and white photos of heroes, we see statues, we don't see men. We don't realize that when the ramp dropped at D-Day, many of those men had soiled themselves from seasickness and fear before they even hit the water. We don't realize that the heroic defender of Stalingrad was likely suffering from agonizing frostbite in places you can't show in a movie. War is not clean. It is the filthiest thing humanity has ever invented. It strips away civilization. It forces a man to live like an animal, hiding in a hole, eating out of a tin, and relieving himself in the mud next to where he sleeps. The fact that these men kept fighting, kept following orders, and kept their sanity in these conditions is the real miracle. They didn't just survive the enemy. They survived their own biology. What do you think? Could you handle the claustrophobia of a tank, knowing there's no way out, even for nature's call? In the next video, we're going to read the diary of a Japanese kamikaze pilot. Why did educated, young men volunteer to crash their planes and die? The answer is in their final letters, and it is heartbreaking. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that verified story. See you next time.